You called your dad on Sunday. You know the way he sounded. A little slower, a little flat. He said he was fine, but he always says he's fine. You hung up and stood in your kitchen for a minute, holding the phone, not knowing what to do with the thing you just heard in his voice. The thing you've been hearing in his voice for 2 years. You know what it is. You don't know what to call it. I'm Sean Smith, a certified dementia care trainer, along with my wife and partner, Bridget, who is also a certified dementia care trainer. We own A Touch of Love Home Care. We run Power Couple Media, and this is the Wealthy Nation. This episode is not for your dad. This episode is for you. For the daughter who hung up the phone on Sunday and went back to her own kitchen and her own life and carried the worry with her into Monday. For the son who lives 1,000 miles away and visits twice a year and notices the things the doctor never catches. This is for the spouse who watches the blue light come on under the bedroom door at 1 a.m. and again at 3. This is Domain 2 of the Whealthy Brain Blueprint. The chapter is about sleep. And for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to walk you through what is actually happening to your father's brain at night. I'm going to walk you through what the largest sleep and dementia study of the last 25 years showed, and what you, yes, you, can do from 1,000 miles away with one phone call and one sentence. We're not here to tell you to fly home and fix them. We're here to tell you what your body knew before you sat down to make that call. Before we get into the science, I want to give you permission. Because you're allowed to live 1,000 miles away. You're allowed to call on Sundays. You're allowed to feel guilty that it is only Sundays. You're allowed to know what to say. You're allowed to not be a doctor. You're allowed to not be the family caregiver. You're allowed to send a brother, a sister, or neighbor, a homemade, instead of going yourself. You're allowed to be afraid of the conversation. You're allowed to start a smaller conversation than the one you think you're supposed to have. You're allowed to text instead of a call this week if calling feels like too much. You're allowed to love him from where you are, and you're allowed to want more for his next 10 years than the chair and the TV and the blue light at 4 a.m. That is the whole rule. Okay, here's what the science actually says. In 2021, a team led by Dr. Sabia at University College in London published a study in Nature Communications. 7,959 adults followed for 25 years. The question was simple. Does the amount of sleep your father got in his 50s, 60s, and 70s affect his chance of developing dementia decades later? The answer was yes. The adults who consistently slept 6 hours or less a night were 30% more likely to develop dementia than the adults who consistently slept 7 hours. 6 hours. That is the number to remember. That is the number to remember when you call him on Sunday and ask one new question. Not 5, not 4, 6. Sleeping 6 hours or less is associated with higher dementia risk by about 30%. Sleeping 7 is the floor the research keeps pointing back to. The study is called the Whitehall II. Sabia Nature Communications, 2021. Write that down. The next time someone, your father's doctor, the supplement aisle, an influencer, tells you something different about sleep and the aging brain, you have a number and a paper to compare it against. Citizens of Wealthy Nation get the truth. So do the daughters and sons of the citizens. And I want to be careful with you about one thing. That 30% is associated with, not caused by. The study watched what happened over 25 years. It is what scientists call an observational study. The signal is strong, the data is strong, but no scientist can tell you that more sleep by itself will prevent dementia in your father. What the science can tell you clearly is that the brain getting 6 hours or less year after year is operating at a different level than the brain getting 7. If you've been telling yourself for 2 years that you are imagining the change in his voice, you're not. 6 hours cost something. That is what the science says. So why does the number matter? What is your father's brain doing in those hours that it cannot do at any other time? One image, stay with me. Think of his brain as a building that runs around the clock. Now, while he is awake, the building is open. People walk through it, phones ring, work happens. But every building, every essential piece of infrastructure has a maintenance window, a time when the lights go out, when the lights go low, the doors lock, and the work crew comes in and the building gets serviced. For your father's brain, that maintenance window is sleep. You cannot service a hospital while the patients are walking the hallways. You cannot service a runway while planes are landing. You cannot service a brain while it's being used. Inside that maintenance window, 3 jobs get done. 3 jobs your father's brain has been missing. Maybe for 2 years, maybe even for 10. 1, his brain is filing the day. Every conversation he had today, every name, every place he put his keys. Sleep is when his brain moves what matters into the long-term storage. If he doesn't sleep enough, that filing doesn't happen. The next morning, the name he knew yesterday is not where he put it. That is why he's searching for words on Sunday calls. That's not a disease you're afraid of. That is the work of last night never finishing. 2, his brain is doing housekeeping. Every working brain produces waste. At night, while he's asleep, the fluid that surrounds the brain runs a cleaning cycle. Now, I want to be honest about this part. Most of what we know about brain cleaning came first from studies in mice. The human evidence is growing, but it's younger. What we can say honestly is that his brain is more active at clearing certain proteins during sleep than during wakefulness. And one of those proteins is called amyloid beta. And that's the same protein that over decades is associated with Alzheimer's disease. When he doesn't sleep enough, the cleaning doesn't finish. The dishes stack up. 3, his body is rebuilding. His heart slows, his blood pressure drops, his hormones reset for the morning. His immune system runs its shift. None of this, not the filing, not the clearing, not the rebuilding, happens while he's in the chair at 1 a.m. None of it happens while the infomercial is on. The maintenance window is real. The work is real. And his body has been waiting for 2 years, maybe 10 for him to get it back, to give it back. If you've ever heard the change in his voice, that is what the change in his voice is. It's not a death sentence. It's not a diagnosis. And it's a maintenance window that has been closed for too long. Citizens, quick pause here. If this is the kind of truth that you came here for, I want you to hit subscribe. Because every week we come back to this spot with one job: your brain, your money, and your life. And we don't ask the industry for permission to tell you the truth either. Subscribers get every episode, every segment, every fact check first. So subscribe and stay in the nation. Now I want to tell you about a daughter. Her name doesn't matter, but let's call her Sarah anyway. She lives in California. Her father lives outside of here in Connecticut. Her father is 71. He's a retired tradesman, spent 42 years on roofs and ladders in the cold of Connecticut in February. Her mother had her hip replaced 6 weeks ago. Her father is the one helping her mother to the bathroom at night. He's the one hearing the cat at 3 a.m. He's the one keeping the TV on because the silence in the house is worse than the infomercial. Sarah noticed 2 years ago, it was a Sunday call. Her father was looking for a word and couldn't find it. She said, "No big deal, Dad," and laughed it off. She got off the call and stood in her kitchen and held the phone. She didn't know how to do it or what to do. She didn't fly home. She didn't book a flight. She didn't call his doctor. She did something smaller. She mailed him a copy of the Wealthy Brain Blueprint with a note and said, "Dad, domain 2. Just look at domain 2. I love you." Week 1 of trying, Sunday call. Her father told her he had read it. He asked her what she thought he should do. She said one sentence, "Dad, what time did you go to bed last night?" He said, "I don't know. Somewhere after midnight." She said, "What about 10:30?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. He said, "I'll try." Week 2, Sunday call. She asked him the same question. He said 11:15. Then he changed the subject. Then he came back to it 10 minutes later and said, "Actually, it was closer to midnight. I was watching the news." She said, "That's still better than last week." She heard him breathe out on the other end of the phone. Week 3, Sunday call. She asked what time he went to bed. He said 10:45. A little proud. He was proud. You can hear the pride in his voice. A little defensive. A little 11-year-old. Week 4. He calls her on Wednesday. She's at work. Picks up anyway. He says, "I just wanted to tell you I slept 7 hours last night. First time in I don't know how long." She says, "Dad, that's amazing." He said, "Yeah, well, he never calls on Wednesdays." Week 6, Sunday call, 10 minutes. Her father telling her about her mother's recovery. Her father telling her about talking to her about her job. Her father remembering her son's birthday is next week. She got off the call and called her brother. She said, "Dad sounds different, sharper." Her brother said, "Yeah, I noticed." That is what domain 2 looks like from 1,000 miles away, from a daughter who could not fly home, could not be the caregiver, could not call his doctor, could not fix him. She mailed him a book and asked him one question every Sunday: "What time did you go to bed last night?" The smallest possible intervention, the maintenance window opening up from 1,000 miles away. I have to give you the honest caveat. We promised citizens of this nation and the daughters and sons of citizens that we would never give you a study without giving you the limits of the study. The Sabia paper watched data for 25 years. It's an observational study. The researchers watched. They didn't run a controlled trial. That means I cannot tell you that your father will not develop dementia if he sleeps more. I can tell you that the adults who slept 6 hours or less were 30% more likely to develop it. And I have to tell you one more thing. The relationship between sleep and dementia may run in both directions. Sometimes, the changes in the brain that come from dementia can themselves disrupt sleep. Sometimes, by years, sometimes before any symptoms ever show up. So when you notice the change in your father's voice and you find out his sleep has been ragged for 2 years, the science cannot always tell which one started first. The research is honest about that. So I'm being honest about it with you. What you do not get to do is panic. What you do not get to do is fly home this weekend and tell him he has dementia. What you do get to do is mail him the blueprint. Ask him what time he went to bed. Be the daughter, be the son who notices. This is the difference between fear and stewardship. This is not a diagnosis, this is a habit. So, how do you start? You start this Sunday. You call your father like you always do. and you ask him one question. Dad, what time did you go to bed last night? That's it. You don't need to send him an article. You don't need to send him a supplement. You don't need to send him a sleep tracker. You need to ask him one question every Sunday for 3 months. That question is a sensor. It tells him you noticed it. It tells him you care. It tells him there is a number and the number matters. And somebody on the other end of the phone is going to ask about the number next week. That is the smallest possible intervention. And in dementia care, the smallest possible intervention done every week is often the one that works. He may push back the first time. He may say, I sleep fine, stop worrying about me. I am the parent here, you're the child. If he does, just don't argue. You don't send him the study. You don't say, but Dad, Sabia 2021. You say, I know, Dad. I just like asking. Indulge me. And the next Sunday, you ask again. And the asking is the work. If your father is gone, if the call you wish you could make is no longer possible, then the work is for the one who is still on the other end of the phone. Your mother, your stepfather, your aunt, the neighbor across the hall. Pick one citizen in your life over the age of 60. Ask them on Sunday, what time did you go to bed last night? Just one. Now, a couple honest things to say before we close. If your father is taking a sleeping pill, don't tell him to stop it because his daughter heard the podcast. He has a doctor. His doctor prescribed it. Do not break his trust in either of you. If your father snores like a freight train, if your mother says he stops breathing at night or wakes up gasping, this may be sleep apnea and it's treatable. The treatment matters more than any of this. Tell him to bring it up at his next appointment. Tell him you will fly home and go with him if that's what it takes. If you can mail him the blueprint, mail the blueprint. If you can call him this Sunday, call this Sunday. If you live in the same house as the citizen we've been describing, if you are the spouse watching the blue light under the door, the question is the same. Just ask it in person. What time did you come to bed last night? The starting point this week is one question. Ask with love. Ask with the science behind it. Ask without panic. This is how Domain 2 begins, from 1,000 miles away or from the other side of the bed. So that is Domain 2 for the daughters and sons, the maintenance hour. The work your father's brain has been waiting to do. The reason your dad might sound sharper on a Sunday in 6 weeks if somebody on the other end of the phone keeps asking. If you have the blueprint, read Domain 2 yourself, then mail it. The whole point of this nation is that nobody is alone in this work. If you don't have the blueprint, agentwealthily.com, send us a message and we will send it to you. Matter of fact, we'll send it to both of you. Now, the next time we go to Domain 3, food, fuel, and rhythm, the dining table that became the kitchen counter, what the science says, and what to do when your father is eating standing up at the counter alone. And on June 30th, we will be live at the Cromwell Senior Center for the first Whealthy Brain Hour. 1 hour, 5 domains together. Doors open at noon, and the event begins at 1:30. It's free to walk, free. The walk-ins are welcome. If your dad lives in Connecticut or you live in Connecticut, come. And bring a friend. And I want to say the industry has never respected us. We were customers to them, numbers on a spreadsheet. But we are building a nation. And in this nation, this one right here, the citizens get the truth. Until next Sunday, pick up the phone, ask one question. What time did you go to bed last night? The citizens, before you go, if something in this hour landed, subscribe. We saved you a seat in the nation, and we'll be right here next week. Same spot, same job, your brain, your money, your life. Because we don't age quietly, we age wealthily. Take care of your brain.